Welcome back to Hero Class Civil Warfare by Rogue Druid. If you have not listened to the first chapter, please be sure to do that before continuing with this video. Chapter 2, Black Moves First. Chapter Summary. The game shows the opening move, but life is not chess. In this game, the villain moves first. Day 1, 6 hours, 0 minutes. 6 a.m. local time. Game start. Welcome to your mission briefing. Until now, you have not known the precise parameters of your mission. Aizawa-sensei stood before the assembled hero team. They were in their costumes, each with some variant of the UA symbol, backed by wings added to represent them being part of the same team. Katsuki stood at the front, looking over the screens behind Aizawa as he took in what information they had. That's because, in the real world, you rarely know what your opponent is after. 1 hour ago, when the villains entered the city, the test began. Uraraka blinked in surprise, hearing mutters and curses from the other heroes. The chosen field for this is a place neither class has ever had a reason to visit before. Training Ground F, known among students as the Downtown District. It is a full 10 by 10 block of skyscrapers and apartments, modeled after the likes of New York and downtown Tokyo. He turned and tapped the computer behind him, pulling up a video feed. 3 unmarked white trucks entered the city at the start of the hour, the villains using them as an entry vector. One of them had a signal transceiver attached to the top, and we believe that is where the video that was sent to you was live-streamed from. Traffic cameras tracked 2 of the box trucks, but the third, the one with the transceiver, took a back alley and seemed to disappear. At this point in time, we have no idea what exactly their plan is, but most support analysts agree this has the markings of a hostage situation. There are civil bots in most public places, simple mannequins with basic motor functions and sensors. Keep them alive and safe. They will run from fights and danger, replicating normal civilian reactions, but the villains can and will take them hostage. The screen changed once more, the video of the trucks vanishing to show one of the trucks backing up and parking at a loading dock. 4 figures in loose black jumpsuits, covered with hooded jackets, got out and began pulling cases from the truck. This is the back camera from the bank in the city. Soon after that, all camera feeds to and from the bank stopped. The screen flickered to another unloading, 5 equally disguised figures stepping out of another truck. All of them were armed with briefcases and carrying boxes of supplies. This is the only camera we have access to at the government building across the district from the bank. It seems the villains have split up, attacking multiple locations at once. The screens changed, the conference table that the heroes were gathered around lighting up with a hologram of the simulated city. Paragon, the mission command is yours. Your objectives are to detain or eliminate all villains while avoiding civilian casualties or collateral damage to the best of your abilities. Your priority, however, is to bring in the subject Kingpin alive for questioning. With that, Aizawa stepped away and the door opened. Katsuki stood, looking at the map. After a moment of consideration, he began to mark it with entry points. We'll start with 5 teams. Leaders are me, Ida, Todoroki, Shiozaki, and Tsuburaba. Keep in contact. Ida, your team is hunting. Find that 3rd van. I don't trust not knowing where it's gone to, he said. Todoroki, Tsuburaba, your teams are heading for the district. Set up a forward camp and keep an eye out. Me and Shiozaki's teams will head out to the bank. If we work fast, we can stop them before they do any lasting damage. Keep in touch and keep each other updated. Move out, he called out, surprisingly professional for his normal demeanor. Shitty Deku thinks he's going to outmaneuver me. He grinned, teeth pulled back in a vicious smile. I'll show you how worthless and beneath me you are. 7 days before the exam. Aizawa Shoda looked at his student, his exhaustion reaching even deeper than normal, as he took in Midoriya's distant expression and strange mood. He had barely said anything, just sat there with a cup of tea in hand, staring into the steam. Just as Shoda was about to start, he was cut off. That selection was rigged, wasn't it? Midoriya's expression was sharp, with the focus that Shoda had only seen when Midoriya or his friends were in danger. The intensity of it said that he was on overdrive, mind racing through mad plans and data. He had seen how Midoriya reacted during the USJ attack. He'd also heard about the stain incident. Yes. He wasn't going to lie, not now. Midoriya was already exhibiting what Shota wanted to see, that drive, but not for another, this time only for himself. Fine. Midoriya held up his rule book. Are these all the rules in their entirety? Aizawa nodded. Yes. Midoriya lowered the book and with a quick motion drained his teacup. A moment of silence passed, the teen clearly considering something, before he looked up and met Aizawa's eyes once more. Please, tell me about the objectives. Ah, the meat of the conversation. There will be 15 objectives planted inside the city. To pass the exercise, you must acquire at least 5 of those objectives and escape with all or most of your team. Extra objectives will improve your final score and even contribute extra credit and help raise your grades. Each objective is vaguely based on a different crime, killing a specific civilian target, or acquiring one object or another, finding a certain document, perhaps destroying a certain server. Beyond that are the 2 other win conditions that you can complete. Escape the city on the 3rd day, or make the heroes unable to continue and or force them to retreat. If either of those 2 conditions are met, you automatically pass, even if it's on a technicality. Midoriya seemed distracted, lips moving slightly as he processed the new data, before he looked back up. What about loss conditions? There are 3. All villains are taken down and captured. You, the Kingpin, are killed or captured by the hero team. Or you leave before the 3rd day, which would be considered a forfeit. Midoriya nodded thoughtfully. Then, almost hesitantly, he asked another question. Where's the test taking place? Training Ground F, the downtown district. An incredulous pause broke the conversation as Midoriya looked at him in realization. Shota could tell Midoriya saw the faint grimace on Shota's own face. After that, Midoriya went through a quick flash of various expressions. Aizawa caught both confusion and understanding. Sensei, when's the last time the hero villain won this exercise? A pause stretched out by tension. Eventually, Shota sighed. It was back when I was a first year. I heard about it through gossip and later from hero course classmates. There was a 3rd year with an overpowered heat and fire manipulation quirk. He works with Endeavor now. Endeavor himself is quite proud of being one of the only Kingpins to ever win, and even holds the current record. Even then, no villain team has ever won with full marks. But why? Midoriya asked hesitantly. If Shota were a betting man, he'd say that Midoriya already knew the answer. Pausing, he decided to give the clarification anyways, giving a hard glare towards the cafeteria where the rest of the hero course would be. Because no hero wants to play the villain. They don't want to be the bad guy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, problem child. You're going to be outnumbered, overpowered. The game is going to be stacked against you, which is a shame because that makes this entire ordeal less effective. He glanced at Midoriya, who was now staring into his empty cup with a thoughtful expression. Slowly, that expression shifted. Thanks, Sensei. Midoriya placed the empty cup in his saucer and grabbed his rulebook before leaving. Shota couldn't help the grin that stretched across his lips at the look and stance of his student as he exited the door. This year's Civil War would be interesting. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. Feints and Misdirection. Summary. Ida's team hunts down the 3rd truck, while the bank presents an unpleasant surprise. Day 1, 6 hours, 34 minutes, 6:34 a.m., local time. Tenya looked back, head counting his team once more. After getting a ride from a van to the simulation city, the driver had dropped them off less than 4 blocks from where the truck was last seen. Looking back at his team, he mentally reviewed each person and their quirk. Uraraka Ochako, his second, zero gravity. Shishida Jirota, brawler and scent tracker, quirk, beast, gives heightened animalistic senses and strength. Kodai Yui, the team defender, has a moderate growth quirk, can become a giant. Then his fifth, Tsuntori Pony, with the horn cannon quirk and mutation. While his team wasn't the strongest, Bakugo had made sure that they had enough power to fight. Soon enough, they found the alley, a thin canyon between 2 rows of buildings. Shishida-san, can you pick up anything from the trucks passing? The taller teen leaned forwards, crouching as he took deep, long breaths. I can smell Exhaust and burned rubber. And look, skid marks. They stopped suddenly here for a bit, he pointed out, kneeling over some darker streaks in the alley pavement. Tenya looked up and around, the rest of the crew following suit. The buildings on either side of them were windowless, and the alley itself sloped down and back up on the far side. Tenya's eyes tracked along the wall and found something. There, a garage door. They never saw the truck leave, right? Ida-san, perhaps we should radio in? Kodai's quiet presence appeared at Ida's side, looking at him with curiosity, and he nodded in agreement. Ida tapped the side of his helmet, connecting to the group channel. Ida reporting, my team and I have found signs of the third truck. There's a garage door down the alley. We want to see if they parked it there. The hell are you waiting for, Glasses? Go look. Check in if you find shit, or in half an hour. Understood. Tenya tapped the comms inside. Bakugo may have tempered his language when directed towards his team, using it for his nemesis instead, but he was still terribly curt and unprofessional. Regardless, Tenya had a job to do. Uraraka, Kodai, please keep an eye on the alley entrances. Shishida, Suntory, with me. The three headed in, eyes peeled. With careful steps, they reached the garage. A quick inspection revealed it was sturdy, likely another loading dock of some sort. Checking the digital clock next to it, Tenya turned when he heard Shishida inhale deeply. The exhaust trail leads here. Shall we knock? Tenya grinned. Of course. Suntory-san, would you care to perform the honors? The horn girl grinned, skipping backward and crouching. Yes, she said, and with a skip and a leap, she slammed into the garage door full force, horns shredding the metal so she could enter. As one, both men grabbed the sides of the entry and ripped it to the side, widening the hole for ease of access. They stepped in to join Tsunotori in a ready stance. Inside the room was indeed a loading dock, the ramp at the far end of the bay leading up to more doors. Ida, you guys okay? Uraraka's voice came over the comms, and Tenya took a moment to look around, eyeing the corners. We're fine, but there's no sign of the truck, or the villains. Indeed, the very bay itself, while filled with pallets and crates, had no truck present. The room was clean, however. No dust, no debris. It was almost creepy. Shishida-san, is the scent still here? Tenya asked. Stronger than ever, Ida. It sat and idled here, I guarantee it. The beastly teen called, inhaling deeply once more. Where did it went? Suntory asked, looking around with confusion, unaware of her mangling of the language. Spread out, check for clues, Tenya decided, tapping the radio to contact the girls outside. Uraraka, Kodai, no sign of the truck now, but it was definitely here. What's the plan? Came Kodai's quiet response. Uraraka, get a rooftop perch and keep an eye on the alley. Kodai, circle around and tell us what this building is supposed to be. I'd rather not get blindsided by not knowing what to expect. 2 affirmatives later, the line went quiet once more. He looked at the others. Shishida was in the middle of the room, trying to follow the scent trail. Tsunotori was jumping up and around the room, checking the boxes and walls for secret passages or weak points. Tenya was about to tell him to give up and move on when Tsunotori knocked down a stack of crates. Tsunotori! Both boys cried out in annoyance, and she shyly bowed. Sorry, those were really, really light. I got on them. I lost my... She paused, looking at where the boxes had been. There, looking like it had been sunken and melted into the floor, was a manhole cover. Chaos. That's what the T intersection in front of the bank looked like. Cars were on their sides, piled up into rough barricades, and covered in broken civil-bought bodies. Some of them were still faintly trying to struggle out from where they were pinned, their AI too dumb to realize that they were practically dead. Standing dead center on the wall-like pile of broken steel and glass, glaring down at the people approaching, were 2 dark figures. One wore a form-fitting black suit with a fedora and a bow tie in red, contrasting with his pitch-black skin and silver hair, which was styled flat and sleek. The other wore a ragged black cloak, but the abnormal shape of his head was clearly visible. Kurohiro and Tokoyami, Shiozaki Ibarra muttered, looking at Katsuki, who stood next to her, eyes focused on the blockade before the bank. They can't possibly believe they can stop us just by themselves, can they? No. This is a trap. Katsuki eyed the skyline. Around the bank, the skyscrapers had backed off slightly, leaving the building just a bit taller at 10 stories than its nearest 6th-floor neighbors. I just don't know what the consequence of tripping it is. 7 days before the exam, final class of the day. Izuku sat quietly at the back of the class, eyes roaming with a strange intensity. He concealed his act behind the guise of reading the rulebook. Already he's found 3 loopholes that would allow him to stack the deck in his favor, and his mouth moved silently as he thought through Class 1A's weaknesses. He needed potency, people whose powers would counter the greatest amount of opponents at once. He could already tell by Ida, Uraraka, and Todoroki's attitudes and quiet demeanor that they were all torn, though he expected all 3 would go to the hero side of the fight, with his blessings. But he could probably get some of the others. Asui would be a good pick, an all-around physical fighter with agility. Tokoyami as well, if only for the sheer power of his quirk. If he could get Hagakure and Ojiro, that would offer him more options. And with 2 agility-based fighters, he could look for more utility potential, things that would let him acquire his objectives. He could already tell that Kaminari, Kirishima, and Sero were all siding with Bakugo, but Ashido looked torn despite her hero name being somewhat villainous, the Alien Queen. Aoyama was a wild card. His narcissistic personality could veer him one way or the other, but having a glass cannon like him on the villain side would be a stroke of luck. Mineta would be determined by which side had the most hot bods, as he said. Jiro, she was glancing at him and then back to... Izuku paused, green eyes meeting gray. Yayorozu Momo smiled and nodded. Well then, that made the entire game change. Now he had access to resources. He smiled back and tapped the cover of his book, grinning. His eyes roved over the last of the room. Koda, undecided. Sato, probably a hero. Shoji, hero. Maybe? And then Class 1B. Yeah, he could make this work. End of Chapter 3.